Welcome to Phase 20B of the Silicon Fragmentation Project.
All right.
We're definitely getting that doubled from somewhere.
Hopefully it's been fixed.
It's not happening now, but...
Right. Anyway, welcome to a chaotic episode of Fragments of Silicon. Sorry, the team is having some health problems. Galax here has a sore throat, so not going to be hearing too much from him today. And Petty is out with a case of broken glasses. So, with that in mind, joining us this week is Thias Willer of JoyMasher.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. I'm a bit with the flu, but not that bad today, actually.
Oh, that's good to hear, or better to hear, I suppose.
Yeah, better. It's better than past week, so it's good enough.
Anyway, so how we like to get started is we like to get to know the person behind the game studio and whatnot, and we do that by first asking what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level.
Okay, so I first started playing when I was like 2 or 3 years old. My father had Atari 2600. And I remember playing a lot of Pitfall and not as much of Riverhead because I at the time I couldn't understand very much how the refuel system worked and how often you had to refuel. But I loved Pitfall. And then I remember my father getting a PC during that time. And that's when I started playing Commander King and Doom and Wolfenstein. So that's how I started playing. But I never thought developing games was something possible for people here in Brazil. So I never considered a career or anything like that. So I went to college. I studied journalism. And when I got my degree, I just absolutely fucking hated journalism. And I didn't want to work with journalism at all. So I decided, well, maybe I could work on research school. So I'm going to research journalism. But then when I started to look on research topics, I realized that video games were a possible research topic in academic environment. So I thought, now that's something I would like to do. It's important to say actually that at this time I lived in a small city in Brazil, and I created a master research project, and it got approved. Studying game design, and I had to move to São Paulo, which is the biggest city in Brazil, to start working on my master degree. And that's when I realized that there were actually people working making games in São Paulo, something that I thought it was like impossible to happen. No one could work with video games in fucking Brazil, right? And that's actually how I got started because as soon as I started my master, I tried to get in contact with the developer folks in São Paulo. And less than a year after I moved, I started working as a game designer in a small studio.
Yeah, so a bit of background context for the audience. Brazil's gaming scene is kind of interesting because of import fees.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like I suppose most famously, like the Master System, the Genesis were huge there because they had a local distributor. But I mean, like a lot of Brazilian gaming is PC gaming because of the import tariffs lobbied on consoles until I think very recently.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, did you find the transition to becoming a game designer difficult?
So, I think the hardest part to get used to was the office routine around it, because I teach game design now on a local college where I live, and something I always tell my students is that everybody's already a game designer. They design their own lives and they give meaning to the things they do every day. So in a certain way, you're gaming designing your own life and the value system inside it. But I think it's not that hard to make the transition to be a game designer. The hard part is to be good at it. The hard part is to understand how to other players interact with the same systems and how to make them feel what you want them to feel.
I suppose that is a correct statement. And how hard was that conveyance, with your games?
So the games we do in JoyMasher, I'm not exactly the target audience for it. I play all of the games, obviously, but I know I'm not the main target audience. And sometimes I have some difficulty playing some stages or some areas. For instance, that 3D area in Blazing Chrome, I fucking hated that part. But you have to put yourself in the perspective of the player of the game, and sometimes you can't do that by yourself. So one of the things that I love to do is to just watch other people playing the game and try to understand what they are going through, what they are feeling by playing this particular part. Is it too hard? Is it too easy? Are those enemies too close together? Should they spread them out, or should they take some of them out? And try to get a reaction for of the person through watching them play.
That does sound challenging, especially to make sure that's attuned correctly. Right. But anyway, you mentioned you don't feel like Blazing Chrome was in you're not the target audience for it. What would you say the target audience for Blazing Chrome would be?
I believe that how I see our target audience is that people who played the 8-bit and 16-bit era in their home consoles, and that they had a home console, or they had a friend or a relative that they could play frequently, that they played a lot of platformer games, and they continued to play games through their, I don't know, adolescence and adulthood. So they have upgraded what they believe is important in game design, but they still miss those games, but they understand the new design logics that we use today. I say I'm not this particular audience because after the Atari 2600, the first console I had was a PlayStation 1. So I played on PC, I played first person shooters, and then I got directly into the 3D area. So I don't look games like ours with nostalgia. For me, they are the whole new thing, and they are new to me in certain parts because I didn't play that much platformers when I was younger.
I gotta say that's an interesting dynamic because usually when people set out to make this kind of retro style game, it is directly due to nostalgia.
Yes.
Like,
But JoyMasher is two people. It's me and Danilo is 100% this person. So
that, it's like, once again, that makes a bit more sense.
yeah.
But before Blazing Chrome, you had a few other projects. Trying to sure I don't mispronounce, like, just gonna have to go for it. Onikin and Odalis.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So these games are both in that retro style mode, but they are quite different from Blazing Chrome, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And once again, was the impetus behind these two games the same as Blazing Chrome?
In what way do you mean?
Like, were they still built with that air of nostalgia? Just for the record, what Oniken and Odalis are, they're tributes to Ninja Gaiden and I want to say, like, Golden Axe. Like, not okay. It's like, so JoyMasher is about making diverse sort of games.
Yes. So basically, I'll just explain to you how the brainstorming and ideation process works around here.
Okay.
It's like that. Generally, Danilo just got a new console or something of the sort. For instance, I think in Nonican he had just fixed his Nintendo Entertainment System, and we both start to play a lot of games of the system. Danilo replaying them, and to me, some of them I'm playing for the first time, and we are like, "Oh, this is interesting." And then after like 1 or 2 months, we realize we have been playing a lot of games that have that are very similar between themselves. So, for instance, in Noniken, of course, Ninja Gaiden, but also Vice Project Doom and Kabuk Quantum Fighter. So games that from the Nintendo Entertainment System that were fast-paced, platformers with a lot of action, with silly plots, and everything over the top. So let's do something of that. We have played like all of those games before, and now we can make one of those. And with Odalus was something similar. I don't think it was a new console, but it was a theme at the time that we were playing a lot of classic Castlevanias and some Ghosts and Goblins and obvious Golden Axe. And I think Danilo also rewatched Highlander. And so we were like, okay, let's make something like this. And that's how Adalus started. While Blazing Chrome, if I'm not mistaken, it was around the time Danilo got a MVS machine, one of those arcade Neo Geo boards that you can put the arcade cartridges on it. And I think it came with Contra, and we purchased Metal Slug 1 and 2. And we started playing a lot, and we started researching run and gun games, and that's how Blazing Chrome started.
Like, yeah, I can definitely see the influence in Blazing Chrome. Like, and as says everybody else, like, I don't think I've read an article or review about the game that hasn't mentioned Contra in the title. Like,
yes, in the title or in the subtitle.
I'm like, and in terms of creating a run and gun, a side-scrolling run and gun, that is like the official title of the genre, like as opposed to the top-down version, which is more like Commando.
Right? Yes.
Anyway, in terms of developing Blazing Chrome, how difficult was it to put together a tribute to Contra and Metal Slug?
Oof, that's the hard part because that's the hardest part of our job actually because when people try to play our games, remembering of the games that were the inspirations for them, they generally tend to remember how they felt playing it, and sometimes it's not very rational. It's like, oh, I felt like that, and we try to recreate the feel, but the feel is something intangible. It's hard to recreate a feel. So what we try to do is play a lot of similar games, the good, the bad, the ugly, and we just need to continue playing while we are developing. For instance, in Blazing Chrome, until we have the first gameplay, the first gameplay we are proud of in the first stage, it took like I would say 1/5 of the whole development of the game. It took time to actually make the characters move, the guns feel right, the getting the type of jump correctly, how the characters were going to hold in the bars, how to work this controller, and it's always the hardest part is to just tune down these movements and the damage of the attacks and the right length or speed for each weapon. So I would say this balancing to make it feel like an old game, but still make it fair to today's game design understanding. It's definitely the biggest challenge of doing what we do.
That's understandable. I mean, and it is a route that many of these retro-inspired games do take. Some try to adhere as close as possible to the old ways. Some other games, they're less concerned about, having the proper color palette or amount of scrolling that an NES could produce. And what was your take on this kind of ethos? It's like, would Blazing Chrome be the kind of game you could play on the Sega Genesis?
Actually, yes, with some restrictions. Our programmer is actually doing that right now. He's trying to make a room of Blazing Chrome for the Genesis, but we have worried much more about limitations in our two previous games, Oniken and Odalos. Both Oniken and Odalos, about the color palette and the sprite sizes, it's very accurate to what Nintendo would do, but it's not completely, how can I say, it's not completely accurate. For instance, in Odalos, we added some extra colors to the palette. Sometimes we needed, and especially the bosses sprite size was probably a lot more than the Nintendo could handle. But we try to be as accurate as possible. Even with the resolution of the game, for instance, in Odalos, we want to keep the standard resolution, but we can't ignore that most players use widescreen nowadays. So we did the game inside the original resolution, and we added 2 bars in each side of the widescreen, so the menu could be there, and we could use the full resolution of a Nintendo for the game itself.
Like, I imagine that was kind of difficult since, actually achieving that kind of low resolution in the modern age is quite difficult.
Well, yeah, but you got to do what you got to do if you want that feel.
True enough. Just, like modern development tools kind of like output at HD, in standard. Ironic, I know, but anyway, in terms of Blazing Chrome, was there a conscious effort to emulate like the 16-bit Contras, or was that a happy accident?
In what sense do you mean emulate?
So, like a lot of reviews, including our own, have compared Blazing Chrome to a specific set of Contras, like Contra 3: The Alien Wars and Contra Hardcore.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, did this game draw actual inspiration from those two, or was it just kind of more coincidental?
I would say with the first one, it was more coincidental, but not Hard Corps. Hard Corps we played a lot during the development. It was probably the biggest inspiration.
That's about what I expected. Since once again, like I saw Contra Hardcore picked out quite a bit.
Yes.
Now, on the inverse, how challenging was it to find a unique voice for Blazing Chrome? As this game has been compared to the old classics, what did you do to make sure that this game, wasn't just seen as a complete clone of Contra, for example?
Well, the classics are classics for a reason. They generally are very good, and they have some design choices that they did because they were good design choices. So it's hard to invent new ways of doing well the same things. But what we will do is we will try to, we played the inspiration game, and we would think, okay, so this grenade here, it's very interesting, it's very useful to do these kind of jobs in this game. What could we do that would have a similar effect, but it doesn't need to be a grenade or a grenade launcher or a bomb like in Matters. Like, how could we do something similar to that but different? And that's how we proceed. We get the problem, the application of this item or feature in particular, what the problem they're trying to solve, and try to understand this and solve in a different way.
It's a logical approach. And I think it was successful, or at least successful enough where people recognize that this is an actual Contra game, which is
Thank you.
It's like, which is kind of important because it's like it is your own unique game.
Well, we do our best to make it unique, but there's always going to be people that are going to say that no, it's not different enough from Contra, and in the same time, we are going to have people that they're going to say no, it's not enough like Contra. So we try our best to be an homage, but still try to be new and different.
Understandable. So in terms of like playing the bad and the ugly, did you ever play like the 3D Contras?
Yes, unfortunately.
That's my sentiments. Like, I'm like,
well, research is research. You have to give it a shot, even if it is shit.
I know. It's just I remember how bad those games were.
They're still bad today. Actually, they got even worse.
I don't doubt it because, well, early 3D has aged about the worst. Out of all like old terms of old games.
Yes, definitely. Like you can still look at I don't know, a PC Engine game and an Amiga game and look, oh, there's some charm in it, and then you see the early 3D games and you're like, ooh.
Yeah, I suppose as an art style that has its own individual charm. It's just the PlayStation? Do I want my eyes stabbed out by the Jags, or do I want my eyes blurred by N64 vision?
That's a tough choice, but I prefer them stabbed. I really hate that anti-aliasing that was standard on the 64.
Understandable. It's like I said, it's kind of a bad choice no matter how you flip it. But that does bring me to my next question. Have you ever considered doing an early 3D type game?
Yes, all the time. And we have been postponing it. We have been thinking about doing one since the end of Adalos, and then we started Blazing Chrome, and now we are doing our next project that's also 2D, Moonrider. So it's up there somewhere, but it's not going to be the next project, but that's something that we definitely want to do.
I'm like, that's once again also understandable, considering there is a world of challenges going from 2D to 3D.
Yes.
I'm like, I mean, this is why so many of the classic franchises had problems jumping into the third dimension, because the principles of a 3D game are so much different than a 2D game.
And how this new art is going to evolve is something completely unpredictable so early in the beginning. For instance, Mario 64, which is one of the biggest standards for 3D games ever. And it did an amazing job to make you understand the 3D world for someone who has never played a 3D game before. But if you play it today and you see the textures, for me, I want to die seeing those textures, because it feels like they just took some photos and decided to put it as textures, and in such low poly models, it looks so disturbing.
Yeah, that's probably what they actually did. I mean, it's like Super Mario 64 wasn't the prettiest game even when it launched. Although the DS version fixed the texture issue. It's just the DS version controls so much worse. Anyway, getting back to Blazing Chrome, how long was this game in development, and how many people worked on it?
So it was basically 3 people: me, Danilo, and Yuri. Of course, there was also the music guy, the sound effects guy, but they weren't full-time on the project. But full-time on the project were we 3, and that was about it. And for how long? I think it was 2 years. 2 years development for Blazing Chrome. I'm asking Danilo. He's right beside me, and he confirmed it was 2 years, 2 years and a half.
Yeah, that's about standard development for the size of the team and the game being made.
Yeah, it will probably be faster with more people, but we cannot guarantee the same quality and style if we just put some more people that we haven't had time to work with and understand how they do. So we prefer to take our time and do how we think the game is appropriate.
Yeah. Well, and it's also pretty good that the game didn't take 5 years.
Yes, definitely.
We've had developers on the program who have spent that amount of time making one 2D game for various reasons.
No, it's understandable if it is your dream project and everything, but I can imagine after the 3rd year, you just want to kill yourself and everybody that is in the project with you.
I'm like, that's very probable. I'm not going to speak to any of the developers, since every experience is different, but I could definitely see that. Anyway, In regards to the Nintendo Switch version, recall when the game got released, there were some performance issues, like,
Hmm.
and I'm wondering, have those been ironed out at this point in time?
Yes, they were.
Yeah, okay. I just hadn't heard the follow up on that since I don't know people move on or whatever, but it's good to hear. Let's see.
Yeah, the problem was that we had some performance issues in some of the stages. We tried to fix the best we could in the time we had, but we just had to really sit down and resolve it after it was released. But in the first patch, they were made better.
Hmm. Well, thankfully, we do live in an age where you can fix your games pretty easily.
Yes.
Now, I know people decry the state of release games not being all that up to snuff, but it's better than, back in the old days where if you had a bug crashing glitch, you have to reprint everything and such. If it got
Or it
at
was
all.
just final and we could do nothing and the players would be frustrated and we would bankrupt like ET did to Atari.
Something like that. I'm more talking like something in regards to Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy.
Oh, I see.
That's a game that very famously had a game-breaking glitch that never got fixed until the HD remaster. It's like I said, there are good things and bad things from the old days.
Yes.
I very much
And
like. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that if we have fond memories of the old days, we tend to overlook the bad things and just remember the good things. And that's a problem when you try to make retro games because people tend to forget the shitty parts of those experiences back then. But yeah, we have to remember them and we have to understand how to go around them.
No, very much so. Because I mean, that's literally what nostalgia is. It's valorizing the good parts and just kind of clouding up the bad parts.
Yeah.
Anyway, so very notably, Blazing Chrome ended up on Game Pass. How did that occur? And has being on Game Pass helped the game?
Actually, yes, a lot. Because there are a lot of people that wouldn't pick up the game at first, but since it was on Game Pass, they played, and a lot of those people say they love the game, even though it wasn't a game that they were going to pick up in the first place. So that was very comforting.
I can see the connection since once again, it's not just that Blazing Chrome was on Game Pass; it was offered free. A couple months ago. So, free game to test out. It's like people don't have as much invested in it as opposed to just buying the game. So, it's good to hear that that worked out. Let's see. And how has the game performed in the months? I imagine you can't talk about specific sales numbers, but like what platform did it do the best on?
I'm glad you asked that because I was going to say that in a previous question and I forgot and got carried away by what I was saying. But it was the Switch.
That's not surprising, actually. Like, a lot of games have done well on the Switch, especially games of this nature.
It was a bit surprising for me, actually, because I heard a lot of hate of people very upset about the performance issues in the Switch. And I was like, oh, fuck, this is going to kill any sales in the Switch. But no, we didn't. It was just some people that couldn't stand not having drop shadows.
Oh, geez. People on the internet exaggerating and blowing an issue out of proportion. I have never seen.
Yes, very surprising, right?
Totally. Like, did the Nintendo Switch version do significantly better than the other versions? Like,
I don't have the numbers for Xbox and PlayStation, but I have the Switch and the PC numbers, and we only released in PC for like our lives, right? We released Oniken and Otalos on consoles this year with the help of another publisher, Digerati. We still don't know the numbers about those releases, so we had no idea what to expect in consoles. And actually, Switch sold double of what the PC version did, and that was very surprising for me because, as I said, I had no experience on consoles before.
Fair enough. It's just, like I said, we've had other developers who have released Switch versions that, did like so much better it saved their company.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, it's like there are various reasons for this, but it's not a surprising trend from our point of view. Mm-hmm. But it's good all the same that the game has done so well on the platform.
Yeah, we got very happy too.
Yeah. Have Odalis and Oniken been released on the Switch?
Yes, but I don't have the numbers on those.
Right. Anyway, let me see. So, can you talk about your next project yet?
Yes. If anyone wants to know more about it, Danilo is always tweeting images of our new project, and he can't help himself. But it's called Moonrider. It's it reminds us a lot of Oniken and developing Oniken, but it's more 16-bit and it's a lot more fast-paced. It's more inspired by Shinobi and Hagani, and yeah. And if you guys want to check it out, just go to Danilo Twitter, and you're definitely going to see it.
And how far along in development is that game?
Well, Danilo started doing Moonrider in his off time during Blazing Chrome because he was going insane waiting for our programmer Yuri to finish some things. Danilo is the kind of person that can't just sit up with his hands under his butt for like 5 minutes, otherwise he explodes. So we started alongside with Blazing Chrome, but every time Blazing Chrome was going well in development, he stopped doing Moonrider. Right now we have the main mechanics very well developed, and we have a demo, and we are starting what we believe is going to be the second stage. So we're still early in development, but I would say the main mechanics are well defined.
Well, can you talk about the main mechanics at this point?
Yeah, sure. So basically, it's a platformer, and it's a lot more fast-paced than Odalus or Moonrider. It's not a run and gun though. It's based on a slash mechanic, so it's a melee game. You have a main weapon, but you have 3 special weapons as well. You have air kick that makes everything a lot faster while you're fighting enemies, and we are trying to give that 80s Japanese feel of a lot of games from the NES, from the Nintendo Entertainment System, but the appearance it's more like the Super NES.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned like Hagane there, which is a
yes.
really underrated Super NES game.
That's are thinking as well.
Well, I'm like, it's just surprising to hear anyone draw influence from, a game I haven't thought about in about, however, like 20 years maybe.
Well, that's we do our homework, you know. If we're trying to research a certain type of gameplay or a certain type of a genre, we really take our time in playing and trying to understand how it works and understanding why it works or why it doesn't work. That's why.
It's a good philosophy to have. Like, and is Moonrider being developed in the same way, capacity as Blazing Chrome? I.e., is it coming to consoles and PC?
I think so. We haven't yet closed the deal with a publisher. We are in talks, and it's probably going to come to console as well. And we are doing in a different engine. Blazing Chrome was made in Game Maker. And for Moonrider, we are using Construct, but I think it's not going to be a problem or anything like that.
It's like I couldn't say because I'm like, I know I know Contract gets used, but we haven't encountered it a lot on this program. But hopefully the transition is a smooth one. Let me see. Galix, do you have any questions for our guest at this point?
Not really.
Okay.
Sorry.
I hope you get better.
Me too.
But yeah, I think that'll about do it for the session then. Matthias, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your schedule and joining us today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure.
No problem. I mean, Blazing Chrome is actually one of the best games I've played all year.
Oh, thank you. Daniel is going to be so happy to hear that.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what takes shape with Moonrider, and probably invite you back on the program when that game is further along, and we can talk about it more in depth.
Perfect.
All right.
And if you guys want to also talk with Danilo, maybe you'll have more conversation topics about Hagani with him.
Sure. Next time we'll have both of us on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Right. So the game is Blazing Chrome. It's available on all major systems, and it's on Game Pass. So be sure to play it today.
All right. And thank you for playing.
No problem. All right, so that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Be sure to join us on the Sunday reviews. And until then, I wish you good gaming.